How did the social political landscape of innovation change in the last years?
I think that the starting point of this reasoning can be thinking about the revolution, let's say, driven by artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0. That, as we all know, challenge the normal, the standard paradigm of production and labor supply. The actual laborers are in danger, and probably in a few years, 5, 10, 20 years, many of them would disappear. The most advanced countries and systems like Europe have to face this challenge, and basically they try to stick and to move the economy to the added value, most added value layer of the production system. Innovation, both social and technological innovation, is seen nowadays as a way to provide solutions for the people, for the society. So I think that this is the way that explains the great deal of attention and also investments that characterized the last 3-4 years and would characterize the next 5-7 years. With this respect, some features, some elements that seem to me more relevant are the increased attention that the system, when I say system, I mean the public sector, but also the philanthropic sector, provides to exploiting value from research, for example. This is a first issue. Academies and research centers produce research, fundamental research or applied research. There is an increased attention in exploiting value from this research, for example, to proof of concept schemes and tech transfer tools in general. I can mention, for example, at the European level, the EIC, and within the EIC, the pilot that is running about, in particular, the Pathfinder scheme. And a second feature is that of blended finance. So the idea that is very relevant for us to move from a pure grant scheme when you support innovation in particular to a blended scheme, let's say, in which you have probably some part of granting, but also some part of investment. So what was used to be lost money in a brutal sense from our perspective, so money given and lost, can become money, high-risk money, but with a certain probability, low probability, that would become an investment. And this, I think, is a change of paradigm that actually would help the system, because it would improve, would increase the level of the amount of money that the private sector can put on the table.
Currently, we talk about strategic philanthropy. Can you explain this concept?
Well, of course, if you do philanthropy, you can do it in a, let's say, classical way, which doesn't mean that is old or not or useless. It's just that it's classical, and is, for example, when we provide grants for existing activities to keep them alive, or when we help the social net of an ecosystem to be resilient, so to overcome crises, and so you help the system in carrying on what is already in place. And this is the classical way. Then you have what you call modern philanthropy, in which you, to schematize, you take more risks. So you experiment new models, new programs, new social intervention. When you then you experiment, then you evaluate, and if the evaluation is positive in terms of impact, you try to scale up it in dialogue with the public sector. When it comes to strategic philanthropy, you can add some meaning to this modern philanthropy, in the sense, at least as I interpret it, in the sense of alignment. So if you are able to align and to pile up money, but also competencies of people through a unique common goals, to one unique or common goals, then you act strategically, and you can leverage on other kind of source of money, but not only money. For example, if we think about SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals, you align your strategy as a foundation to the SDGs. The first obvious result is that your money is added to the international money, the national money, the regional money. But there are other effects that are less obvious. For example, you leverage on all the communication and all the discussion that is already on, and when you talk, when you say SDG 1, reducing poverty, fighting poverty, you already say something that is in the mind of many a decision maker or also people. Let's think about the environment, for example, sustainable development. This is one. The first thing is alignment. Second concept that I would mention is about impact. So having a strategy and being strategic in your philanthropy means putting impact at the forefront of your objectives, and in realizing that if you want to have impact on society, you need to act at the system scale. So you cannot just tackle one societal challenge, for example, poverty, labor, but you need to act on a systematic scale. And again, for example, SDGs provide a useful scheme because it's a comprehensive way to see the challenge of sustainable development. And in this view, there is a third concept that I think is relevant, is the one of co-design or co-creation. For example, for instance, in the last 2-3 years, we are part, as Compagnie San Paolo, of a table at the European level, in which the most active European foundation in funding research discuss with Commissioner Moedas and his team about Horizon Europe. And they put in the legal framework of Horizon Europe 3 ways in which a foundation can cooperate with the European Commission, from, let's say, exchanging information, to aligning programs and co-funding programs, to aligning strategies. And what the jump that we are trying to foster is the one from co-design, so designing, for example, the European Commission has a work program, and we design our programs accordingly, to co-creation. So being at the table when the work program is written, when you decide strategically if it's better to act on, for example, in an environment to tackle plastic-free process, or another pollution, for example. That the level, this, to summarize, means being strategic in your philanthropy.
What are the main targets of strategic philanthropy?
Well, I would repeat a bit what I said before, because
Operative.
At operative level, we actually are we completed lately a reorganization of Compagnia di San Paolo according to SDGs. So basically, at the operating level in 2020, we will communicate and put out, promote granting schemes according to more, let's say, according to SDGs, because we already worked along those lines. But now we would be more explicit in being aligned with the SDGs. A central role is played by innovation. We interpret innovation in the holistic way. So we would have a challenge called innovation, labeled innovation, with the people in charge. And innovation that ranges from the social innovation, so the tools that our local environment already developed in the field of social innovation. I would mention Torino Social Impact and Social Fair, for example, which is an accelerator of knowledge and then of, let's say, enterprises in the social sector. Through the technological part of the innovation, we fund a foundation that's called the Links Foundation, who promoted the birth of a company called the LIFT, which aim is to foster this proof of concept scheme in tech transfer. So the idea to move from a TRL, let's say 4 or 5, to TRL 6, 7. So the so-called valley of death of innovation. And but the idea behind holistic innovation is that you you extract more value when you put together the technological side and the social side, for example. Then another target is to be very aligned with the EU programs, the social, not only Horizon Europe, but also Invest EU and the structural fund deployment of money, so the indirect way of deploying money. And in this framework, I mentioned the social infrastructures. We interpret, for example, cultural players as a social infrastructure or a territory. So we will keep funding culture in a massive way in our area of intervention, which is not only Torino, but the northwest of Italy, basically, so Liguria, Piemonte, and Valle d'Aosta, with this view of investment in the social infrastructure. Another point, another target that I mentioned is the one of active citizenship and being part of the social life of our territory. I believe that this is something strategic because we face our social value, the social value of our citizens, our fellow citizens, is, I mean, I don't know how to say it, but I find it more difficult to have a fruitful debate, for example, about some emerging issue, some very relevant issue for the society. Let's think about the phenomenon of fake news. Let's think about the vaccine debate that in Italy has been very traumatic, for me at least, in the last 2 years. So what our reflection is that we needed to rebuild, or to contribute at least to build a new way in which people can be active in society, be the active part of the public debate, the political debate. And this is something that in a certain way is among every other intervention.
What are the future challenges and your expectation for strategic philanthropy?
Well, I think that we face, as always, I have to say, two main challenges in the future. One is the perception that society, as a broad level, has of us. And we know that we have a risk being a private foundation, but to the public good and using, let's say, public money, not in the sense that are among the public sphere, but in the sense that belong to all of us. And but we are private, so we need to be recognized by society as relevant and as let's say super partes, objective and effective. I would summarize this again with the word impact. I think that if we are able to be in contact with what the society finds relevant, and we are able to be impactful in what they find relevant, we will keep being highly considered and in a sense, not auto-referential, which is a risk of the foundation, the philanthropic sector. Even let's say, the risk is even higher when you try to act strategically, because you risk to be auto-referential. You do your own analysis of the society. You find a convincing theory of change. You apply the theory of change, and you risk to lose the ability to dialogue with society. So I think this is the first challenge. The second challenge, which is related, is to align stakeholders. I think that if we, even though Compagnia di San Paolo puts on the table a considerable amount of money every year, if we don't align, we are not able to sometimes align and sometimes gather people and institutions on what we think is relevant, I would, in a provocatory way, would say we would waste money, because we would, keep alive something, we would promote some project, but we wouldn't have the cited impact that we want to have. So aligning stakeholder, being credible in aligning stakeholder is another fact. And finally, I would say, I think we need to be brave and be in a sense, finding the equilibrium between being as institution, being institutional, and supporting institution on our territory, but trying not to continue projects just because they are there, or continue supporting tiny local project that probably make sense because you need to promote biodiversity, even also, for example, in research, by keeping what is called selective watering, to water. But let's not forget the word selective. So being, for example, rotate in the way which support project, and this has a cost, comes with a cost. The cost of popularity, of saying yes to everybody, which is something that we cannot afford.